Hey everyone, Lucas here for LA's Toys and Comics, and this week I sat down with comic writer Matthew Rosenberg, writer of such titles as Uncanny X-Men, Hawkeye Freefall, Task Force Z, and DC vs. Vampires, as we talk about his brand new book, We're Taking Everyone Down With Us, with artist Stefano Landini. It was a great interview. I hope you guys like it. Let's go ahead and get started. Hey everyone, this is Lucas for LA's Toys and Comics, and I'm sitting here with comic book writer Matthew Rosenberg. You may know him from such titles as Uncanny X-Men, Four Kids Walk Into a Bank, We're Never Going Back. We're not going. I am flubbing your title.
We can never go
back. We can never go back. We can never go back home. Task Force Z, DC vs. Vampires, and Punisher. And I bring up the Punisher because for those of you that are watching this that go to the Inner Geek, the store that I work at, you might know Matt Rosenberg as the guy who put Punisher in the War Machine armor.
This is true. I did do that.
Yes. So, can you speak on that just real quick, how that kind of came to be?
Yeah, sure. I was working at Marvel and doing some smaller stuff, and they liked what I was doing. I was working with an editor named Jake Thomas, and Axel Alonso was the editor-in-chief at the time, and they asked me if I liked the Punisher, and I'm a lifelong Punisher fan. It's one of my favorite books always. And I said, yeah, I'd love to do it. And then they asked me to pitch, and I said sure, and I sent in a couple ideas, and one of them was, what if he steals the War Machine armor, because they just killed War Machine. Rhodey had just died. And so I was like, the armor's not around. I think he'd think that was a good opportunity. And I sent it in, and they were so excited, and I immediately was like, oh, this might be a really bad idea, actually. And so I tried to back out of it, and then they were like, no, it's good. It'll be good. And then I wrote a longer pitch, and I tried to back out of it, and they said, no, it'll be good. And then I wrote an outline. I was like, guys, I don't know if this is a good idea. And they said, no, it's cool. And then we ended up making the book, and for the most part, people dug it, so that was nice. They were right. I was worried people were going to be real mad at me.
Well, I mean, the Punisher in War Machine armor, that's a peanut butter and jelly idea, if there ever was one.
Yeah, I think as a Punisher writer, it makes a lot of sense. As a fan of War Machine, as a fan of Rhodey, I could see why people would bristle. But for the most part, people were very cool, and a big thing that I wanted to do in the book was I said, Punisher's ex-military, Rhodey's ex-military. He's not going to do this lightly. Even if he's handling it in a way Rhodey wouldn't like, he has nothing but respect for him and who he is and what he did. So that I think that sort of assuaged some of the fears that we had of people freaking out. But yeah, right. It was a fun one, and people seem to really connect with it because they made a lot of toys and bigger toys, and he's appeared in a bunch of video games now, so I'm like, well, that's always a good sign, I guess.
Yeah, but one of the reasons I bring up the Punisher is you worked on that book with Stefano Landini, who is your co-creator and artist on your new book, We're Taking Everyone Down With Us.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about this book? I've got a chance to read it, and we do have some teaser copies, teaser ash cans. Are we upside? Yeah. That will be in the store.
Yeah, so for sure. The book is, me and Stefano co-created it, and it's set in a sort of 1960s, 70s James Bond-ish type world of sexy super spies and mad, power-hungry villains. And but our story is actually about a 13-year-old girl named Annalise whose father is the world's greatest mad scientist. He's a genius. He's a maniacal genius, and they live on seclusion on an island with no other humans around, and they're just surrounded by the robot helpers that he's created. And when their whereabouts are discovered and people learn where they've been hiding all these years, sort of Annalise's whole life kind of explodes around her, and she's forced to go on the run with one of her robot bodyguards, and she has to decide if she wants to follow in her newly discovered father's footsteps of being this sort of power hungry, revenge driven person, or she wants to try and make a play at having a normal life that she was never given because she lived on an island full of robots.
Yeah, and the preview starts with I'll go ahead and open it up. Let some people look at it here. Preview opens up with an innocuous game of hide and seek with one of the robots, and that's are we to assume that like this is her only real form of maybe not entertainment, but like, kind of companionship between the robots, her dad, and his I want to say butler, it's not butler, his
Yeah.
assistant.
His he has there's a human helper.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's like her dad, even though he's sort of stepped away from the limelight of trying to take over the world, he is still driven to his laboratory where he's always working on mysterious, strange things. And so the robots are there to keep them safe, but also to sort of mind her and yeah, she's really starved for human contact and affection and all these things, and she doesn't know it because you the life you grow up in you always assume is normal until someone tells you it's not, and she has no outside stimulus to tell her this is a strange world. So yeah, she plays frustrating games with these robots who are not very good at playing games, and she wishes that she had some better outlet, but she doesn't know what that could be.
right. So easy. My cat will not leave us alone. Go on, bro. All right.
Welcome to the interview.
I know, right? Uh, so FOC for this book, for those of you that don't know about FOC, it's called Final Order Cutoff. So FOC for this book is March 6th, and this book launches March 26th. Um, is there anything variant, publisher-wise, that you're really excited to do for this book? Obviously, variants are such a huge part of comics nowadays.
Sure. I'm sort of excited about all of it. It's been a long time since I've launched a creator-owned book, and I just like sort of me and Stefano have spent a couple years working on this now, so we're very excited for people to go out and see it, and sort of all of it makes me happy. I'm excited. We have those preview books, like we mentioned. A bunch of stores are getting a free 5-page preview of my book, and then my collaborator on 4Kids Walk Into a Bank and What's the First Place From Here, Tyler Boss, has a new book called You'll Do Bad Things, and that's the flip side. So it's 5 pages from my book, 5 pages from his book, and then we interview each other on the inside, and that's kind of fun. And I'm excited for people that's the first glance that some people are going to get. But no, I think everything's really fun. We have a lot of awesome covers. I'm sort of a big sucker for getting I just get a huge thrill out of having cool people come and do interpretations of our characters and our world. So we have a bunch of awesome ones. Jacob Phillips from the Texas Blood and Enfield Gang Massacre did a great cover, and Chip Zdarsky, who's like a new guy. I don't think he's done anything before, but he did a cover, and it's pretty cool. My collaborator on We Can Never Go Home, Josh Hood, has like a die cut cover that we haven't shown what the inside is, but like it's very cool. It's awesome. I'm forgetting some people, but there's just a bunch, and it's always really fun. We just get a real kick out of bugging friends and people we really respect to come do them, and so the reaction has been great. People have been really excited about the covers. Madia Deulis, who draws the Cull at Image, and is done a bunch of stuff in Marvel and DC, did a really beautiful cover that's great. So
yeah. One thing that really struck me, not quite with the book, but with you, is you reached out to comic shops, wanting to promote this book, which is the reason you're here talking to me today.
Sure.
That is something, obviously we see it from time to time with creators, but this is the second time you've done it. Of course, first time, at least for us, you sent us an email about Hawkeye Freefall, the Hawkeye miniseries, and you did a video for us. And I know a lot of that stems from your time working in a comic book store. How long did you work in a comic book store? When did you decide you wanted to make that transition to writing?
So I worked in a comic shop for just under 2 years. I want to say under 2 years. My sense of time is always terrible.
You're fine.
but I actually I used to work in the music business and sort of had all sorts of jobs in the music industry, and it was there that I decided I wanted to make comics. I'm a lifelong comics fan, and just really wanted to do something different. And the only thing I love as much as music is comics. And I was like, well, let me figure out how to do that. And so I was trying to do that while I had a music industry job for a long time, and it was not good. It was hard. It was hard to find the time to make comics and be around comics and sort of be thinking about them. And so I wanted to switch it up. So I took a job in a comic shop, to just sort of surround myself with comics more and be more immersed in it. And I was really lucky because the shop I worked at, Tyler Boss, who, like I said, drew Four Kids Walking to a Bank with me, and does What's the First Place from Here with me, worked there. And my friend Vita Ayala, who's a Marvel and DC writer, worked there. And there's just a bunch of aspiring comics creators. We were all sort of working together. Danny Lore, who's a great comics writer, Matthew Klein, who just did Crashing at IDW. It's a really fun book. He worked there. So all of us were sort of working there and going home and making comics and sort of coming back and showing each other what we were doing. So the whole time I was there, yeah, I was just trying to make comics. But a big thing for me, the shop I worked at was in New York City, where I live, where I'm from, and they don't have back issues. There's no back issue. It's just new releases and trades. And so I developed a very strong, I'd always have books where I would try and support them and say, like, we should back this book, we should order heavy on this book. And a lot of times I was right, and there'd be an audience for it, and I could hand sell it. And then sometimes I was wrong, because sometimes you're wrong and the audience just doesn't show up. And I was always very cognizant of taking that stack of books that I'd told the owner, like, we should back this, and then you take it downstairs and you put it in a box and it's gone from the store's shelf, and it's just money lost. And so I have a real heavy anxiety about people taking a risk on me and investing money in me, and me not doing everything I can to try and help them get that back. I understand it's part of the business that people have to invest in product and invest in books, but I want to give people every tool I can to try and make that back. And that's sort of what I do. So I'm always trying to reach out to stores and making myself available and saying, if there's anything I can do to help you, I don't ever ask people to order more books, because I think that's, I don't know your store. I've never been in your store. I've never been in this random store. I don't know what your clientele wants. I don't know what the customers read. I trust that you know how to order. But with that said, anything you order, if there's any way I can help you sell it, like, let me know and I'll try. Yeah. So that's what I've been doing the push for that, and hopefully it helps people sell the book.
Yeah. Well, of course, we appreciate it, not just at the store, but just in general. I mean, anytime you get a creator that's willing to talk to you, whether it be just online or in person, whichever, it's always good to kind of just build that camaraderie between retailer, customer, and creator.
For sure.
And we're taking everyone down with us. Like, obviously, we have the preview books. You're going to send out some, was it postcards or posters?
Yeah. We're going to send out a bunch of signed posters and stuff to people to give out and see if that, I always say it's real simple. Thing to do is, you got a signed poster. Tell customers, if you sign up for this book, you can have a signed poster. You can have some stickers, whatever. But obviously, shops can do whatever they want. They can take them and decorate the bathroom. They can do whatever they need.
Customers love. Well, everyone loves free stuff. Our customers love the sticker aspects. I mentioned in the email when we were talking, I was like, the new Iron Man release from Spencer Ackerman.
Yeah.
Like, it did really well because he was like, hey, I got some stickers to send you. And he was like, just give them away with each purchase. Another cool thing is I do have the €4 only, one per store.
Yep.
Usually what we do with these at our shop is, I wish I could say that we're above board and, we raffle it, but usually there's one person that has talked about the book the longest, or is a prior fan of your work. What's the First Place from Here? We have a few pulls for, and all the guys there absolutely love it. So awesome. we'll probably flip a coin and see who gets it, and they will appreciate it. What's the First Place from Here? And talking about your love of music and being in the music industry, one of the cool gimmick sounds right. One of the cool gimmicks for that book when it came out is you guys were doing records for it.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you planning on doing anything similar with We're Taking Everyone Down With Us, or are we doing just more of a traditional release?
No, I would rather light myself on fire than try and do more records. The No, we the records was really fun, and it was a fun idea, and it hit at the exact worst time of pandemic shortages and massive upsurge in demand for vinyl. So a lot of places that suddenly couldn't. When Metallica suddenly wants to make a ton of records and Taylor Swift suddenly wants to make a ton of records, me being like, I want to make a few thousand 7-inches, I get pushed back. And then there was some issues with distribution that were great. So the records was kind of a little bit of a nightmare, but luckily they're all made and they're out there and they're available, and hopefully anyone who wants them can find them. And no, I didn't want to do anything like that. I just, I spent a lot of money on the records, and it was cool, and we donated money to charity, and that was really exciting for me. But I was really, I thought, if I'm going to spend a bunch of money this time, I want to spend it on promotions and trying to help the book find an audience in stores and help stores have the tools to do that. And so that's what, sending out those free preview books that people can pick up, or sending out the first issue for retailers to look at, and all that stuff. That's sort of where that energy went instead of the novelty.
Well, novelties are cool, but good books are better. And this is, how many pages is this first issue? I was just flipping through it to look for the colors, because that's one thing that kind of struck me was Stefano Landini's art's fantastic. The colors really pop.
The colors are great. Yeah.
It's a chunker.
It's a clunker. It's a complicated thing.
Chunker.
Well, either one. There's a complicated answer to how many pages it is. We haven't talked about this publicly, but the preview copy that went out and the review, the copy that went out to retailers to read, and the copy that went out to people to review, there's actually a 3-page scene that's not in there. For various reasons. So the finished book is a little longer. So actually that ash can, the edition you have is different than the final book. It's not just
not quite incomplete.
Yeah, it's not incomplete. It's not like there's not 3 pages at the end. There's 3-page scene in the middle that we took out for various reasons. That will be in the final book. So I think in the end the full book is 40 pages, 38 pages, 39, somewhere in there.
Okay. And that's a good full experience, especially for a first issue. So many comics nowadays, you get 22 to 24 pages, and at the end you're like, well, yeah, that feels like a chapter 1. Whereas this one, a lot happens. You're introduced to your main character, you're introduced to her father, her family, you're introduced to a potential big bad, without giving too much away, of course.
Yeah, it's I'm sort of everyone's different, and the way they approach story in comics is different. I'm very much a character first writer. I really want people to care about the characters, and that takes time and space to let them do things, especially if you're setting up a story and setting up a high concept and establishing the world. And so I like an oversized first issue because you can really let the characters breathe and get to know them and care about them. I don't love the thing where you get like 20 pages into a book and then you turn to the last page and it's like, well, this is the movie poster basically. Yeah. This is what the book is. And I don't love that. That always feels like it feels like you paid for a movie and they just showed you the trailer. Like it feels imbalanced to me. So I want to make sure that people spend a lot of time with the characters and get to know them and have a better sense of what the book would be. So that's why it's thicker.
Yeah. So, real quick, one thing I do notice on here, and I'll pull it up for the camera to see, is I love the this part, a Rook spy thriller. So, let's pretend perfect world. Book takes off, catches fire. Are there a lot more in the chamber, or is this going to be a mini series? Like, what were we thinking?
So, it's a 6-issue series.
Okay.
This story is 6 issues. We have the story we set out to tell. That's a complete story. there are more issues that we know what they are, and
Okay.
hopefully people pick up the book and there's an interest. And if there is, you're gonna see a volume 2 and a volume 3. If not, you're getting a complete story in 6 issues. You know what you're going in for. We
Right.
don't. I don't ever love the idea of selling someone on something and then giving them a shortened version of it because the demand wasn't there. I don't. You know, we all have Netflix and we all see the, you know, the show that we fall in love with disappear, and it's such a bummer. So I wanted to assure people, like, the story we set out to tell, we're telling, but there will be a sequel if the demand is there. We know, me and Stefano know what it is, and we are really excited about it. And yes, it would fit into the Rook universe, the
Right.
spy thriller universe. He's a big character in the book, and there's more of him and more with Annalise to tell. So hopefully we get to do it.
Well, I feel like in comics, like everyone knows your quintessential super spy, James Bond. They know Nick Fury, Black Widow. I feel like, especially in the independent world, spy fiction is a little underrepresented, at least in the
Yeah,
independents. And when you do get a good one, you kind of really want to latch on to it. Obviously, like Matt Fraction's Casanova series was
sure.
absolutely fantastic. Um,
Yeah, there's it's funny because there's not a ton of spy books. There's obviously the James Bond books, and then I always point to Casanova's one, Mark Miller's Kingsman with Dave Gibbons, and um, Queen and Country from Greg Rucka is a favorite book of mine, and Velvet from Ed Brubaker, Steve Epting, and then it's sort of like that's sort of where I run out. I'm kind of like that's kind
right.
of it. And so we're a little different from all those books are different from each other, but we're sort of doing something a little different. But yeah, I like to think we're the weird, obnoxious little brother of those books, if that makes sense. And like, yeah, I'm hoping we get to do more because yeah, there's just not a lot of spy books, and I'm a huge James Bond nerd. I'm a huge fan of John le Carré and Graham Greene, and like the Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy stuff, and everything like Mission Impossible, all that stuff. I just love spy stories and espionage and things like that. And so getting to do one is very fun, and I do hope I get to do more down the
Right.
line for sure.
Yeah. Well, so I listened in preparation for this. I listened to your interview on Sketch.
Okay.
Uh, of course, you think I prepare a little better to not flub up. We can never go back. But you said in that interview that Stefano actually had the idea originally for or at least it was the robot, right? Like
Yeah.
he had a robot design.
So yeah, the book. Me and Stefano were supposed to do a book at Marvel when the pandemic hit, and everything got paused and everything got messed up, and people were employees that were furloughed, and our editor had to stop work, and the book was moved to a different office, and they replaced us off of the book, and we didn't. They replaced me, and I didn't know it, and so Stefano reached out to me afterwards and was like, "I'm really sad we didn't get to do our book." And I said, "Yeah, me too." And he said, "I want to do something. I have an idea." And I said, "Oh, sure. Like, let's send it my way." And then he just sent a drawing of a robot. And he was like, "This is it." And I was like, "That's not really an idea for a book, man. That's a drawing of a robot." And he was like, "No, it is. Like, I know what he is and what he does." And we sort of talked about it a little bit. And, I will say, to Stefano's credit, I spent a good 6 months being like, this isn't a story. Like, we need to add a bunch to it. I need to add. And so I added, the character, and I added Annalise, and I built the world, and I added, it's about these things, and it's about family, and it's about revenge, and it's about regret, and it's about growing up, and it's about, the choosing who you're going to be for the rest of your life, and all these things, and it's about empathy. And at the end of the day, when I was writing issue 3, I realized that, like, Stefano was probably right, and like just a book about a cool robot that punches people to death would have been awesome. And but I think that's what makes the book really fun for us, is that it's the two of us sort of pulling in different directions. That I'm doing all this like heavy emotional stuff, and he's pulling into this really exciting, action stuff, and then together we sort of everything has to sort of be tested by both of us to be like, well, does this fit in his action book, and does it fit in my family drama? And if it does, then we know that it's good and it works. And so yeah, it's originally his idea, with me coming in and taking a hammer to it and then realizing that his idea was pretty great to begin with. So
I get it. Well, I mean, if Creature Commandos, I don't know if you watch Creature Commandos, but if they can get away with a whole episode of Nazi killing, we like killing Nazis. If
sure.
they get away a whole episode of GI Robot killing things, and maybe you could get away with a 6-issue miniseries of just robots punching people in the face.
I think we probably could. It's if your bad guys are bad enough and your good guys are cool enough, you're happy to just watch them kill people. So.
Well, you brought up the collaboration process with Stefano, and that's another thing that I was kind of interested in. In addition to having already What's the First Place from Here coming out, which this is, forgive me, I didn't check Lunar, I checked Diamond, which was right whenever everything went blank with Diamond and Image.
Sure.
Is it on Trade Break? Because there was nothing solicited. I don't know if I just caught it at the wrong time.
No. So the book kind of comes out when we can get issues done.
Right.
And so we're not on Trade Break. Volume 4 just came out a couple weeks ago, which actually, I always feel weird saying this, but is actually a very good jumping on point for the book, sort of, because it's a bunch of like flashback issues and origin stories that explain a bunch of things. But then you have to go back to Volume 1, so it's not the perfect jumping on point. But we are in the middle of Volume 5. Issue 22 is coming out in a few weeks, and Volume 5 will be to 25. So we're in the middle, but we're just, we hit some delays. There's a bunch of stuff. I had some personal life stuff come up, and then me and Tyler's other book, besides What's the First Place from Here, we made a book called Four Kids Walk Into a Bank, and that's being filmed for a movie. They're making a movie, and so me and Tyler are producers on the movie, and that has ended up taking a bunch of time, and we had to fly. We didn't have to, but we flew to Ireland to go set for a week and visit the set and stuff. And so we are running a little behind on the issues, but they are coming. So we're in the middle of an arc right now.
Yeah, man, Four Kids, I remember when that was coming out. That was, please don't tell me that was 10 years ago. It was 6, 7 maybe?
6 and 7, yeah.
Okay, yeah. God, that was a fun book.
Thank you.
And that's a lot of the books that you do, like, obviously they have themes and everything's going on, but a lot of times they're just fun.
Yeah, I hope so. I try to make them fun.
Which brings me to the next thing with collaboration. The other book that you have out when this goes live, the next DC versus Vampires book.
Yes.
Which this feels like the little engine that could, like, the books just keep coming with All Out War, World War V. What can we expect with this new volume?
So, well, I don't know when this will go live, but there's a new issue.
This Sunday.
Okay. So there was a new issue that just came out this week that's sort of a one-shot that just came out this past Tuesday, I guess, or Wednesday, rather. I'm forgot that DC switched back.
Yeah. It's on Lunar, it still says Tuesday. It's still usually the Tuesday date. It's silly. It's silly.
So it came out on Wednesday. But yeah, the new volume of DC vs. Vampires is just us trying to put me and Otto Schmidt, who's my collaborator on that, trying to do just big, crazy. It's an Elseworlds book, so we take big swings that we couldn't do in a normal DC book. So it's the war. The first volume. The first series was about the brewing war between humanity and vampires, and with heroes and villains on both sides, and it ended in a sort of truce. And now this volume is about, we're 6 months into that truce, and everyone is miserable and sort of starving, and just as the war is about to heat up and kick off again. It's Batgirl is the queen of vampires, and Wonder Woman and Gorilla Grodd are sort of her generals, and Aquaman are her generals, and then there's a coalition of humans that are sort of fighting back. And just as everything is going to kick off and the war is going to heat back up, a third party sort of enters the battlefield, and that is Darkseid shows up. And so Darkseid is looking for Mr. Miracle, looking for his family. And it sort of becomes, what was a standoff becomes a three-way war for the soul of the planet, as it were.
Yeah, well, Darkseid is, so you can't...
It's true. That's true.
Uh, but that so you collaborated with people at Marvel, DC, Black Mask, all these different companies. What obviously there is differences because Marvel and DC don't have stricter editorial.
Mhm.
So what's some of the differences between working at the big two as opposed to doing some more independent stuff?
Oh, it's I think there are it's like the difference between someone giving you a recipe or giving you the ingredients and saying, make a cake.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Marvel and DC are. You have these things that you can't change or alter, or you usually can't. Like Batman's going to be Batman, and
Yeah,
Wolverine's going to be Wolverine, and you can't destroy them, and you can't break them, and you can't change who they were. But the fun is that, like, what do you build from that? And it's part of this bigger thing, and it's part of. I mean, I'm a huge nerd for continuity, so I'm
mm-hmm.
always a sucker for like thinking about the storylines that stretch back to Ditko and Lee and Kirby and Ramita and all these guys, and just being like part of a small part of that is a real thrill. But at a place like Image, where you're making your own books and your own stories, you make everything up. There's no rules. It's you go into a supermarket and you say, what do I want to make tonight? And you can grab anything off the shelf and it can be anything you want it to be. Um, and I love that. I love both. I think it's very liberating to be able to do whatever you want, and it's very exciting to have these toys that are so beloved and this rich history to call on. Like um, it's a very different experience, the two, but I think both have tremendous advantages and both have some drawbacks, obviously.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I want to say it was Grant Morrison that kind of said, working at DC, it's like you take the toy off the shelf, you put it to toy, you do whatever you want with the toy for a little bit, and then you put it back exactly as you found it on the shelf.
yeah,
And that I think there's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of good things that can come from that. And that, well, you can't break these characters, you can't break this toy.
100%. Yeah, I think it's funny because when I was at Marvel, me and Donnie Cates used to argue all the time at the summits. We'd always have these crazy story ideas and these crazy things, and some people would always push back and be like, you can't do that with these characters. You can't do that. And our line that we always said is like, we're not important enough to break these things. Like, they're not breakable. Like, Captain America existed before our parents were born. Captain America will exist after our children are dead.
Yeah.
There's nothing we can do to Captain America that he's not going to be a beloved, important figure. So let us go crazy with him and see, what people think. And that was always a fun argument to have, because it's and I get both sides. I think there are people who are very precious and protective
Mm-hmm.
of the legacy, and they don't want to have to justify why something happens. But there are also people who understand that you have to push these characters forward and try new things with them. And sometimes those things stick. Sometimes those
Yeah.
things are the Winter Soldier. Sometimes those things are, whatever character
Yeah.
you're doing.
I mean, Jason's segment on Venom, like, completely rewrote Venom's
Sure.
mythology.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and I think that's very fun to play with, to see how far you can take things and also be respectful of what came before, and loving and appreciative, and pay tribute to that stuff is a fun balance to have.
Yeah. Um, Marvel, DC, Image, Black Mask. Have I missed one that you work for? Oh
Um,
wait, no, Oni Press
I
with
just did
Cole
I
Kingdom.
just did, yeah, I just did some stuff for EC for Oni, and that was very exciting. I'm a big EC nerd. I love the old EC reprints.
Mm-hmm.
So when they asked me, I sort of jumped at that. And then I did art stuff at Archie. I did the Archies
Okay.
and for a little bit, and I feel terrible if I worked somewhere else and I don't remember it, but I don't think I have. Yeah, I'm mostly just a Marvel, DC, Image, Black Mask, and yeah, I don't think I worked anywhere else particularly.
But I mean, that's a resume. I mean, obviously, image when it comes to creator owned comics, Image is the standard. So,
Sure.
if you have, if I can't, if you have the Image eye on you like that, that's already a sign of quality
Yeah.
for a lot of people.
I,
And of course, Marvel and DC have history going back to the Golden Age. It is, great things.
sure. Yeah.
But but when it came to the start of your career, and I know you said you worked with Vita Ayala, Raella, sorry, Tyler Boss. Um, your first couple comic writing gigs, or your first time trying to break into the business, like how did that come? Like how was that process?
Uh, it's horrible. um, Pitching comics. I mean, it's a different landscape now, for better or worse. For better and worse, probably. But when I was trying to break in, 10 years ago, I guess now, 10, 11 years ago, the there were only a handful of publishers who could actually pay to make a book. Like you could bring, there's a bunch of publishers you could bring
Mm-hmm.
a finished book to, and they would publish it. But to actually pay for an artist, or pay, not even pay the writer, but pay an artist so the artist could eat. I mean, it was under 10 places. It was Image and Boom and Dark Horse and Top Shelf and Oni, and there was some other, there's places like Fantagraphics and Drawn Quarterly, but that's not really for what I was trying to do. And there was a couple others. There's like Slave Labor was sort of not really doing a lot, but there's stuff like Vertigo and Icon to a lesser degree,
Oh,
I guess.
Aftershock.
Yeah, I mean,
There's a few.
it
Yeah.
was before Aftershock,
Okay.
but and so it was really hard because you're pitching stuff um, and sending out pitches, and then you work on something for 6 months and you send it to 8 people, the 8 people who can write you a check, and if 7 of them don't answer and one of them says no, you're done, and you go back to the
Yeah.
drawing board. Um, and so that was what I did for a long time, and then when Black Mask started, uh, I knew people who knew them. Matt Pizzolo, who runs Black Mask, sort of grew up in the hardcore scene in New York and Long Island near me, so we had friends in common, and so I sort of asked people to put me in touch with him, and they were doing an anthology called Occupy Comics, and I asked if I could do a short, and they were nice enough to let me do a little short in there, which was very cool. And then from there, they let me pitch We Can Never Go Home, and pick that up. And then I also had the rights. I was doing a book with RZA and Ghostface Killah from the Wu-Tang Clan. I was doing a book called 12 Reasons to Die, and that didn't have a publishing home. And so once I was in at Black Mask, I said, I took it to a bunch of publishers, and a lot of them were really receptive, but also the time frame of what we needed was, they were like, we can't do things that fast. And Black Mask was a new company, and we're just like, we'll do our best. I was like, that's better than anyone else's answer, so let's go. And so I ended up doing 2 books there, sort of right out the gate, which was really, really fun and exciting. And it was just a great place to be for, like, it was all new voices and new talent. That was sort of their mandate, was like, find new people, break new people into the industry. And they did a great job. Like, a ton of amazing writers and artists came out of Black Mask and from my time there. So they were a lifeboat in a very rough sea for a couple of years of trying to find a publisher.
Yeah, and it feels like for publishers, it feels like every probably about 5 years, there's a smaller publisher that kind of gets a little bit of heat behind them, and it's introducing some really interesting people there.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like we're due for another Black Mask, or if Black Mask are they still?
They are.
Okay,
Black Mask only puts out books when they like them.
fair,
They're not like a volume business. Like,
right.
they're not trying to fight for market share. So they put out stuff when they feel like it, and it just means that they have a sporadic publishing schedule, which is cool. I think I like it.
Yeah,
Every time they put out a book, I know it's going to be interesting and worth picking up. So
right. Yeah, you were right when it comes to breaking in, breaking in and trying to create comics. I had my buddy on the other day. He's currently running an Indiegogo. I am writing my first 24-page script with a artist, and
cool.
it takes a while to get the ball rolling on these
Oh yeah.
things. Um, so Tyler Boss, whenever you first started collaborating with him, like obviously you knew him.
Yeah, yeah.
Has there been an instance where you have reached out to an artist kind of cold call, or just been like, hey man, I like your stuff?
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, dozens of times I've done it.
Yeah.
there's one I won't name whose work I loved, and I reached out and was like, I would love to do a pitch with you, and it was very early on. I didn't know a lot about comics, and he wrote back and was like, yeah, man, that'd be cool. My page rate is this, and he told me his page rate, and I had a sort of like nervous breakdown because I was like, I can't afford to make these things. That's so much money. It wasn't until like 2 or 3 years later that I figured out that was a like kiss off rate that he was telling me, like, yeah, I don't actually want to work with you, but if you're some weird rich dude who has a ton of money, like, I'll take it. But I spent a good 6 months being like, oh my god, these things are so much more expensive to make than I thought, and they're already expensive. But
yes,
I was like, oh, I can't do this. I can't buy a new car, have a new car payment every time I want to make a comic. But yeah, I've reached out to people. Josh Hood, who drew We Can Never Go Home. I was working with another artist on We Can Never Go Home, and she was great, but she wanted to go do her own stuff. And, you know, we didn't have a publisher, we didn't have a home for it. And I said, yeah, no, I get it. And so we had a first issue done, and we lost it. And I was having a real freak out. And I said to my buddy Ed Brisson, who's a great comic writer, I said, you know, like, do you know any artists sitting around? And he was like, no. And he said, but I just saw this guy post on Twitter and I thought it was cool. And he literally sent me a link to a dude. He's like, I just saw this 10 minutes ago as a drawing of Wonder Woman. I thought it was cool. And so it was Josh Hood who drew We Can Never Go Home. And I just emailed him and was like, hey man, can I see more of your stuff? And he sent me a bunch of stuff. And I was like, cool, do you want to do a book together? And that's, you know, Josh got me my start and is awesome. And is just a real amazing talent. And I always want to do more with him because he's great. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it is cold calling and cold emailing people.
Yeah, it's weird, which, you know, like I said earlier, you sent us an email, and I shot my shot for an interview, which I very greatly appreciate.
Oh, I appreciate it too.
Do you have any advice for young creators or new creators? I wouldn't consider myself young.
Young creators, a catch-all term,
but just in general, yeah.
The advice I give is people always think it's cynical, and it's not. But the advice I always give is save your money. And I don't mean that like you're going to be poor. There's just a point, the more money you can put into a project, the better it's going to look. And it's whether you're hiring a professional letterer, a professional designer to do your logo, you know, a great cover artist, a great colorist, like all those things. It's a visual medium. And if you're a writer, like it would be great if you could write a story and it would just magically appear as a comic.
Yeah. It
would sort of be great, but sort of not. But you need collaborators and partners, and you need good ones, and they need to represent you. And to get your vision out, you need other people to buy in. And the easiest way to do that, I mean, you know, there are obviously people who have amazing pitches and are super charming and can woo great people into coming and working with them for free. But the easiest way to do it is with money.
Yeah.
And, you know, it doesn't take, you know, you don't have to take out a mortgage. You don't have to sell an organ. But like, you know, when I started trying to make comics, like I had a big video game collection and I sold it. I had a big record collection. I sold them because I was like, this is what I want to do. And I need the money to pay people to make me look good.
Yeah. I can't ask somebody to work for free.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I think that's always good advice. And then the other advice I give people is just like, read as much as you can. And don't just read things you love, read things you're going to hate, read things you wouldn't normally read, because you need to broaden your horizons, and you need to understand not just what you love, but why you love it, and not just what you hate, but why you hate it. And that all of that is craft, and like you need to nourish your brain with art if you want your brain to make art. So those are my two big pieces of advice: is save your money and read a lot.
Well, and I understand, like, you know, saving your money, obviously it sounds cynical, but also, and something that a lot of comic creators say is, well, how do you become a comic creator? Well, you create a comic. Sure. And I won't name him here, but I can tell you afterwards if you're interested. One of my buddies who's professional, I try not to get critique or anything from him. I just want to share, but hey man, I got this cool page back. That's kind of what I want to do. And I sent him, I did a 4-pager with an artist, sent it to him, and he just sent back, hey, congrats, you're a comic creator. Which, Can be cynical, can be really uplifting. But when it comes to the save money part, I'm currently working on this book, Sword for Hire. The artist is Jacopo Callisti, fantastic artist.
Great.
In hindsight, I should have saved a little bit more money and just paid to have it in color, because he also colors, because it's going to look good in black and white, but it'll look so much better if it was in color.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's always, it's a learning process, and it's trial and error, and I have a dozen pitches that I made that never went anywhere, that are, some of them were bad, so they shouldn't have gone anywhere. Some of them were all right. I don't think I'd go back and make any of them now, but some of them were I feel like someone could have published this and it would have been fine.
Yeah.
But I feel like I learned something from each of them. I feel like everything I did, I learned more about what I wanted to do, and it helped me refine. And so as long as you're making things and you feel like you're growing, that's great. Like even if you're like, well, this is a mistake, like I should have done this, I should have had it in color, I should have done this. Like that's great. That's a great step, is always how I view things, at least.
Now, do you keep those pitches? I don't want to say in a drawer, but obviously we're on the email age. Like, do you keep those pitches to look at maybe in the future and be like, maybe I could revisit this on something?
No. Ideas. All of my books are sort of snapshots of where I was at the time and who I was, and like things from 10 years ago aren't representative of me, so it's like I wouldn't be able to do those books. They're not who I am anymore, and so it's a lot of it is just like, well, that's cool that me from 12 years ago thought this was fun, and if it's a great idea, then maybe I come back to it and I refigure it out, but I don't particularly look at them or go back to them now.
No. Well, we are coming up on time. So before you leave, one more time, this has been Matt Rosenberg, writer of such titles of Uncanny X-Men, Punisher, Hawkeye Freefall, Task Force Z, DC versus Vampires, We Can Never Go Back, Four Kids Walk Into a Bank, What's the First Place from Here, and we have been talking about your brand new book that comes out March 26th. We're taking everyone down with us. And also, if you're watching this and you don't know who Matt Rosenberg is, or you don't know some of the stuff he's currently doing, you have a podcast. Ideas Don't Bleed.
I do have a podcast.
Ashcan Press.
I do have a podcast. Yeah. So I shouldn't, but I do. I have a newsletter, and I don't like talking about myself as much as you need to on a newsletter, and so I wanted to figure out something else you can do.
Right.
And so my buddies Ethan S. Parker and Griffin Sheridan, who are also comic writers, they made the excellent Kill Your Darlings for Image last year.
Yeah.
The three of us host a podcast together where we interview a comic creator every week and talk to them. And we're not, well, I always say we're not good interviewers, which isn't true, because actually Ethan and Griffin are really good at interviewing people. I'm not good at interviewing people, but mostly it's just people that I've known for a long time or I'm friends with. And so it's very sort of conversational and whatever. And we've had a lot of really fun people on there, and Jason Aaron and James Tynan and Kelly Thompson, Charles Soule, and Kieran Gillen, and yeah, it's we just talk about comics and how people got their start and what they're into and that kind of stuff. And you can subscribe to it on my website, ashcanpress.com, and we send it to you every week. Or if you listen to podcasts regularly, wherever you get your podcasts, Ideas Don't Bleed is probably on there. Maybe. I don't know.
Again, the promotion part can be hard sometimes.
Yeah, I'm happy to. It took me a long time to learn to promote comics, because I'm naturally just kind of like, I don't know, read it if you like it, cool. Like I'm kind of a recluse, so I'm not the natural salesman. Yeah. But I train myself to do it with comics, but I just can't do it with a podcast. I'm like, I don't know, we make a podcast, listen to it or don't. It's fine. It's fine. We're fine either way. It's you probably have better things to do with it. If it was between two things, I'd rather you read my book than listen to my podcast. So
fair. But we live in a world where we could read your book while you're doing the podcast.
It's true. I wouldn't advise it, but you could. Technically, you could.
Well, Matt, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming on. And once again, that is we're taking everyone down with us Final order cutoff is March 6th. So get your orders in, add to your pull lists, and the in-store date is going to be March 26th. I can't wait. Issue 1 was so good. I am excited to see 2 through 6.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me. This was super fun.
Yeah.